Well, the new health care law, a key issue in this election, and while the GOP opposes the president's sweeping overhaul, Governor Romney now explaining exactly what he would do with the Affordable Care Act if he wins the White House. Take a listen.
I'm not getting rid of all of health care reform. Of course, there are a number of things that I like in health care reform that I'm going to put in place.
Brad Woodhouse joins us. Sean Spicer joins us. Both are communications directors and both divided by a thin line. One works for the RNC and one works for the DNC. It's like no difference at all. Gentlemen, nice to have you.
Thank you, Jenna.
All right, Sean, you're on the side of the RNC, and what the Associated Press called Mitt Romney's answer is tacking towards the center. That's how they described it, with swing voters in his sights. Is that what Romney is doing here?
I think Governor Romney's been consistent throughout that he does not believe that Obamacare, which puts government in the middle of health care decisions, is the right way to go. He believes that certain things that are currently in law, pre-existing conditions allowing people to stay on their health insurance till they're 26, can be maintained, while at the same time doing health care reform that becomes a market-based reform system that allows greater competition, innovation, and greater patient choice while driving down the overall cost. The problem with Obamacare is that it put government in the center, it creates a massive new bureaucracy, and it just drives costs out of control. So, I mean, the governor's saying, hey, look, from a market standpoint, here's a way that we can do it that's a win for the patient, that brings in more innovation into the health care, and allows greater choice and lower costs at the same time.
So, Brad, Sean isn't using the word center exactly, but some interpreting it that way today. You know, being in the center is not a bad place. It shows you can work with other people. How is the president showing he can do that in a second term?
Well, let me get back to the central point here, Jenna. This is simply not true. Mitt Romney said on NBC that he wanted to deal with pre-existing conditions, and then his campaign put out a statement last night saying that, in fact, he wants to go back to the law before Obamacare, which means you can only be covered for pre-existing conditions if you have continuous coverage, insurance coverage. This would eliminate 89 million people from getting insurance coverage that will now get it under Obamacare. This was a shell game. He said one thing on NBC and then another thing to a conservative website.
Sean,
he wants to repeal Obamacare.
Sean,
That's
do you
the
want to
bottom
respond
line.
to that?
Right, but Brad, the premise is that Brad's trying to exploit is that if you don't agree with Obamacare, then you can't be for anything that solves those problems. That's not true.
Well, no,
because government
not it, Sean.
isn't always the answer. Governor Romney's been very consistent that he believes that pre-existing...
Go ahead, Sean.
The governor was very clear and has been that pre-existing conditions are something that needs to be covered going forward. Just because he doesn't believe Obamacare is the way to go doesn't mean that you can't have a market-based, centric type health reform that drives down costs, covers that, and allows people to have portable health insurance, carry it from job to job.
No, Jenna, what Governor Romney did yesterday on NBC was leave people with the impression that he would keep the pre-existing condition exclusion that is in Obamacare today in place when he became president, when in fact what he will do is go back to the law that existed before Obamacare, which would eliminate 89 million Americans from getting coverage. In other words, if you do not have coverage and have a pre-existing condition, an insurance company can deny you coverage.
So let me just
That's the whole reform that Obamacare put in place.
So hold on a second. Both sides can battle out that
Romney
specifics when it comes to insurance coverage. I just want a quick final thought, Brad, from you, since I started with asking Sean about moving towards the center. And again, the center being a place where that's where people can govern, right? Brad, I mean, that's where people can find agreement with the other side. The American people, when you look at polls, are still wary of this law. Republican lawmakers in Congress do not support it. So is the president's message to the American people, this health care law is the law to stay no matter what, even if there's a majority of the people that don't like it? Or could there be changes in the second term because that's the general feeling up from the country?
Well, look, this law was upheld by the Supreme Court. It's supported by about half the Americans. About half Americans oppose it. That's about where the political discourse is in this country. But remember, Obamacare The model for Obamacare was a law passed by a Republican governor in Massachusetts named Mitt Romney. It was a bipartisan idea until President Obama pursued it.
Brad and Sean, nice to have you
But
both.
unfortunately, the problem is that you didn't. You claim that, but the evidence isn't there.
Brad, okay,
did you
Sean,
miss Jenna saying that I got the last word?
Brad
You got
is
the first
right. Did
word.
give Sean, I think, the last word last time. So we'll have to have you both back, and then you can battle it out for the last word when we have our third segment together. It's nice to have you both with us, and look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Jenna.
A new housing